In this video, we're going to be checking out a mass serial killer who demonically possessed a doll. No, it's not that one. No, what it is it's the new Mezco Toyz Nightmare on Elm Street. This is the living dead doll of Freddy Krueger, who, I might also add, has sound to him, which makes him even more creepier. Now, before we get a gander at Freddy Krueger, let's first figure out how tall the figure stands, or in this case, the living dead doll stands. Bringing it just up to the point of his fedora. There we go. In inches, you're looking at 11.2 inches. For those who favor centimeters as their unit of measurement, you're looking at 28.4 centimeters in height. For his accessory, I suppose we can count his fedora as something, as it is removable. Inside, you'll see that it is a very thin plastic. I'm not really sure the workaround around this, how they could have done it differently, because obviously it's a very thin, it has to be a very thin rimmed hat. It does feel a little on the thin side. In fact, actually, when I looked at it, it sort of reminded me of this Freddy Krueger. This was the Mezco Mezits Freddy. Just want to show you that it is a very similar type of material. They have definitely upgraded the flocking that they've done to the fedora here. This is how it used to look. It barely had the fuzz happening here. In fact, the fuzz has now started just kind of wearing away over the course of time of owning this. But here are the two hats side by side. I'm actually, you know what? I'm curious. I haven't tried this. Just want to see if this fedora fits Freddy. It does, but it's a little on the loose side. The rim, the black rim, actually is not as visible here because the flocking is a rather dark brown. But there's this very faint black little band around the fedora. You can even, hopefully I don't know if the camera can pick it up. It has a very soft, kind of velvety feel to it. Longevity of this certainly goes without saying. If you're going to be having this out for a long period of time, excessively picking off the hat, you'll probably start seeing that the flocking is going to start wearing probably around here and around basically all the edged points of the fedora. They put a couple of little felt, I guess little felt strips on the interior, just enough that it doesn't scratch Freddy's head here. And the fedora fits very easily onto his head. Included as well, you get yourself a series of instructions. It's not really much in the way of instructions, it's more so just changing out the batteries. Luckily the batteries are already included. You have a try me button on and off. This is on the back of the doll, by the way. And then you have the battery compartment. It holds 3 LR44 batteries, which, like I said, are included, so you don't have to worry about that just yet. We flip around the doll and our best to lift this up, which is not actually the easiest of things to lift up. There's the battery compartment, and then down below there you've got try me, on, and, well, off in the middle, and then on. To their credit, actually, they've even stained the body underneath. This easily is an area you're never going to really see unless you're changing the batteries, but they've actually kind of put like these off colors of like almost a darker plastic to the darker flesh color, that it does give it that sense that it's scarring tissue. Really nice job, even though you're really never going to see this point of it. Again, there's your on, there's your off. We just open up the pants just ever so slightly. Sorry, Freddy. And there's the button right there, the little activation button. I wish it was a little higher. I mean, you're ultimately pressing his behind to trigger the sound effects. Again, he's got the try me, he's got the off, and he's got the on. And actually, why don't we cycle through that right now? So, of course, off, I don't need to show you that. It would just involve no audio. The try me, we'll cycle through that right now. Again, pressing his behind. And you'll probably see right away, you only get 2 audio. Now let's flip it over to on. There we go. And press the buttons again. As you can hear, not so much see, he cycles through several phrases, a good handful, a good meaty amount of different phrases. It's unfortunate, though, that with most audio toys, what it does end up sounding as if comes across a little on the tinny side, a little on the mechanical side. There's really no way to. I guess you could put something inside around the speaker area to just muffle it a bit, but ultimately it just sounds a little on the artificial side, a little on the tin side, so to speak, if that makes any bit sense. But I'm not going to complain and find fault for the fact that the audio is off. I'm just actually really happy that there's audio on this Living Dead doll. Even though the doll on its own is quite spectacular, the audio is really just the icing on the cake here. So if you are new to Living Dead dolls, the Living Dead dolls, you're not going to get the most posability out of them. I mean, you'll get arm posability and you'll get leg posability, but things like knees and elbows simply just don't exist on pieces like this, nor really in the case of waist swivel. The waist swivel also doesn't work, a lot of that being chalked up to the fact that he's got all those audio components and mechanisms on the inside there. As for his face, actually, you know what? We'll remove the fedora to accomplish this. It's a rather interesting amalgamation of a baby doll, which is really what the Living Dead dolls are based around, and a scarred Fred Krueger. The end result actually looks quite good. Again, combining the two elements together. One thing I don't really understand, though, is this section right here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there is a very obvious cut line. Runs here, runs up the side, runs along the top, and it runs down the side right here. It's fully finished, and yet there's nothing really that you can open up and remove. This makes me think that this might have been a abandoned idea, that this could have opened up and exposed a Fred Krueger brain underneath. That's the only logical thing I could come up with. Like I said, there's no way you can remove this. I've tried. There's no lip or anything to it. Let's see if I can grab a screwdriver here. There is, see if I can get in there. Yeah, it's part of the sculpt. There's no way you can actually separate it. So I'm just wondering if it's something that they initially had planned to do, and at the last minute they just decided that, we're not gonna put the effort into having a brain exposed, if that is what they were planning on doing. The flesh is rather scarred, as it should be for Freddy Krueger. It does look pretty good. Paint's a little on the light side. They could have darkened this a little bit more than what they did. The credit, though, should be given to the eyes. Those eyes are creepy. They have like a gloss coat over them, which not only does it make these eyes look very lifelike, but it almost seems as if at times looking at this, the doll is staring right back at you. The teeth, unfortunately, get a little bit too much of the pink happening here, that it seems, if anything, that it's sort of the same coloring as the rest of his face. You could say that there's that little bit of yellow, but I don't feel like there's nearly enough there to depart it from the rest of the face. It kind of just seems like it blends in with the rest of his face here. As for his shirt, his sweater that is, we can clearly see, for the fact that he is leaving off the stripes on his sleeves, that this is supposed to be Nightmare on Elm Street, the first Nightmare on Elm Street Freddy Krueger. And then later in the sequels, he would ultimately get the stripes on his sleeves. I wonder if this is maybe a precursor for maybe a future Freddy, or really thinking this along the lines, this is actually coming to me right now. I wonder if they're going to use a similar head as this, and this part is going to be removable for possibly a Freddy's Revenge Living Dead doll, in which you would see Freddy's exposed brain. Just something I'm thinking about here. The sweater is nice and bright. The green is applied here. Does look like it could have used a second coat over. You see a little bit of the red underneath there. The sweater has a nice dirty, grimy, like grime look to it. A little bit of fraying on the sleeves, not as much as I would have preferred. And then really a generous dolloping amount of grime all over his pants here. They look really nice and dirty and filthy. His boots down below. Kind of actually reminds me of, I don't know where I've seen boots like this before. It's almost like from a children's book. They're of a like a medium brown color, and then they've got these little kind of stitchings in there. Ultimately, though, when you pick up the figure and you shake it, what's rattling though is the boots. The boots are separate, not something of which you can remove. You just hike them up all the way. I don't think you can actually, I've yet to actually try this. There we go. You can take the boots right off. How about that? There's a little slit on the back. And the boots interior. Again, I don't know if I would ever find myself thinking one day, I wonder if Living Dead doll Freddy in my collection, I wonder if I could take the boots off, but the answer is right there, and we can just go ahead and slip those back on. I think I would have almost favored just having them permanently attached to the feet. Actually the two reasons why I'm saying that. For the obvious one is they do make these just kind of rattling noises because they obviously have to sit loose enough that you can take them off. The second problem, as you probably saw it when I was putting the boots back on, adding a lot of stress to this open seam, I wonder is going to add stress further past the point in which it's opened. So for that reason, I'm not going to take the boots off. For that reason, I don't even know why they bothered putting the boots on, but I guess it sort of lends itself to the idea with the doll aspect of it. You can, quote unquote, dress them up. There is Freddy's hands, very heavily scarred. Let's move the sleeve up. There we go. You can see that the scarring runs its way considerably high, actually, way past the point that you would normally have rolled up the sleeve. So that's a nice little bonus touch there. On the other hand, literally and figuratively, you have Freddy's glove. One thing that concerns me about the glove, though, is that this nail here, this blade, was warped when I got it out of packaging. I simply thought, okay, I'll just bend it back into place. The plastic isn't nearly soft enough to do this, that if you do any little bit of bending, it's a little too rigid of a plastic that you may run the risk of adding stress marks and or breaking this. So if you are having to get this guy out of packaging and for some reason notice that one of these blades are slightly bent, just be very careful when you are bending it back into place. There's a little bit of give, but not a whole lot of give, that you may eventually add a little bit of stress marks to those. Here's the top portion of his glove. Sufficiently painted, adequately painted. A little bit of the scarring has carried its way over to the bottom of the glove, but again, it's no deal breaker necessarily. Let's run through the posability on one Fred Krueger. His head rotates. Technically, you can angle it back and forth, which kind of adds a little bit extra pizzazz to the figure, up and down. Like I say, he's got no waist swivel because he's got that little button on the back. I don't even think Living Dead dolls have waist swivels. If they're supposed to mirror like actual dolls, they're really only going to have arm articulation, and to their credit, the arms hinge outward. They could have easily just gone swivel back and forth, and legs swivel back and forth, because that's usually what you would expect from a doll. The arms, however, like I said, do hinge out. The legs also hinge out. The boots have no posability, just, well, you saw the way that they were installed. And like I said, there's no knee articulation either as well. It's sort of one of those collectibles. If you are new to them, you'll very quickly learn exactly what they're supposed to be. It's not a market, I think, where everybody's going to get on board, but they're sort of in an interesting category. They're kind of like the Funko Pop releases, in the sense that you may not necessarily collect every single Living Dead doll that's been released, but there's a personal favorite that you might have, case in point, Freddy Krueger. You may pick up just him, and just him on his own. I think he does things well. Living Dead dolls, like I said, are very much like Funko Pops. You're not somebody that's probably going to collect every single thing that's been released, but if there are certain ones that catch your eye, you're inclined to pick them up. With the Living Dead dolls, I haven't really picked up many of them. A lot of them really more so the ones that I am familiar with, like the Child's Play ones, for example, and of course Freddy Krueger here. I love Freddy Krueger, so I would have picked up this Living Dead doll for him. That being said, I may not pick, like I said, up every single Living Dead doll, simply just because they've released so many of them. As it goes for this particular Freddy, the benefit of this one is that it does have the audio. It's one of the few Living Dead dolls that I'm aware of, at least, that does actually have sound clips to it. Well, I do feel like the sound clips unfortunately sound a little on the tinny side, and if you've ever had an audio speaking figure, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. It doesn't sound the clearest, and it sort of almost has an echoey nature to it. Unfortunately, this Freddy also suffers from that as well. The head sculpt is pretty good, kind of combining two elements of a doll, of course with Freddy Krueger, and I think it's a successful, accomplished look. He has posability necessarily where he needs to have it. Like I said, you're not going to really be able to get some crazy poses out of this guy, but he's a pretty neat looking Living Dead doll. If you guys are interested in specifically Freddy Krueger, I think this one kind of fits all those criteria for what a Freddy Krueger Living Dead doll should be. Still can't help but wonder what that part on his head was supposed to be for. Maybe it's kind of a precursor what we're going to be getting with, maybe with like a Freddy 2 or Revenge of Freddy, so to speak, with a removable cap. Or maybe it was just something that was slated for this figure release, and just the cost of producing it, Mezco Toyz decided to scrap the idea in its entirety. Either way, it's a nice looking release of Freddy Krueger if you like Freddy Krueger as a Living Dead doll. If you are interested in picking this one up for yourself, it should be now available at local comic book stores. It was released, I think, last month, or the end of last month, so I just recently picked this one up for myself. Like I said, he will be available there, and usually that's a good place to pick up Living Dead dolls if you're in the market to start kind of getting into that collecting world. You should be able to find a lot of these at your local comic book store. Today, though, we were having a look at the Mezco Toyz Living Dead dolls. This was the very first Nightmare on Elm Street Freddy Krueger as a Living Dead doll. Make sure you hit that little subscribe button down below, bunkos. More videos will be coming your way. If you also want to swing by the home page, check the videos section, and see if there's any videos that you may have missed along the way. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.